Welcome to the Rosbifs Rugby Christmas quiz. Yes, if you're a fan of French rugby, but you're speaking in English, this is the quiz you need to be doing this Christmas. It's a tough one. We've got 15 questions split into 3 rounds. Top 14, round 2 on Pro Day 2, and a miscellaneous round of random stuff and stuff to do with Les Bleus. All focused on things that have happened this season. It's tough, but give it a shot. Can you beat my fellow Rosbif, Richard? He got 10 out of 15, and it was a bit of a struggle. He was finding it tough. But let's get into it. If you want to give it a go, please get in touch with your responses. You can find out if you've got better than that 10 out of 15. Drop us a DM, or you can email us at rosbifsrugby@gmail.com. Yeah, that's rosbifsrugby@gmail.com, or drop us a DM. But maybe comment, but don't ruin it for other people. Maybe, think about others at Christmas. So, part 1. Top 14. Part 1, top 14. Question number 1. Who did Van play in their first ever top 14 game? So back in September, who did Van, first time in top 14, who did they play in their first game? Who did Van play in their first ever top 14 game? Question number 2. Racing 92 have played at La Défense Arena only once so far this season. Who was it against? So Racing 92, their home ground, La Défense Arena, has been a swimming pool for the Olympics and Paralympics. It's been a gig venue, but it's only been a rugby ground for them, despite being their home ground, only been their rugby ground once so far this season. Who did Racing 92 play in their one game at La Défense Arena this season? At the NOEL de Rugby Awards, so the awards for whole of French rugby, which 3 players were nominated for top 14 player of the season for 2023-2024? So it was held this season, beginning of this season. Charles Richardson from The Telegraph came on our podcast. He was in attendance with a couple of other British journalists, told us all about it. But the NOEL de Rugby, a massive night in French rugby, at the NOEL de Rugby Awards, which 3 players were nominated for top 14 player of the season for the 2023-2024 season? Question number 4, as of round 12, so just before Christmas, the round before Christmas, as of the end of that round, who was the top try scorer in the top 14? Question number 4, as of round 12, who was the top try scorer in the top 14? So the round just before Christmas, who's top of the try scoring charts? Which individual player? Question number 5, one player in the top 14, as of round 12, so the round before Christmas, has received 2 yellow cards and 1 red card. He is the only player to have received both a yellow card and a red card so far this season. Who is he? So question number 5, listen carefully. One player in the top 14, as of round 12, has received 2 yellow cards and 1 red card. He is the only player to have received both a red card and a yellow card so far this season. Who is he? So that's the end of round 1. Top 14, get in touch, DM us with your responses, with your answers, see how many you can get. Part 2 of the Rosbifs Rugby Christmas quiz is, of course, Pro Day 2 or Pro Day 2, depending on how you want to call it. We muddle it up sometimes as well. The Pro Day 2 section of our Christmas quiz. Question number 1. Which player, as of the end of round 15, so just before the Christmas break, is the highest point scorer in Pro Day 2? So not tries, points. Question number 1, which player, as at the end of round 15, just before the Christmas break, is the highest point scorer, highest individual point scorer in Pro Day 2? And it's tough, so we'll give you half a mark if you can guess the club. Question number 2, Georgie Petaya scored in round 8. What club does he play for? What position does he play? And what made his try notable? To be honest, you'll get the point if you get that last one, but it might help with the other 2, getting the other 2. Georgie Petaya, question number 2. Georgie Petaya scored in round 8. What club does he play for? What position does he play? And what made his try notable? Give it a stab. Question number 3. Which teams have racked up more than 50 points in a single game so far this season? So question number 3, there are 3 of them. Which 3 teams have racked up more than 50 points in a single game so far this season? 16 clubs, 3 sides, give it a guess. Could be any of them. Question number 4. Which teams have been nilled, so scored 0 points in a game so far this season? So other end of the spectrum to question 3. Question number 4. Which teams have been nilled so far this season. They've scored 0 points in a single game. It's happened twice. So 2 different clubs out of the 16 sides have been nilled in an individual game. Question number 5 of Pro Day 2 Christmas quiz is, which player who made his international debut in 2024 has been spotted a couple of times at the Stade André et Guy Boniface supporting Mont-de-Marsan? Question number 5. Which player who made his international debut in 2024 has been spotted a couple of times at the home of Mont-de-Marsan, Stade André et Guy Boniface supporting Mont-de-Marsan? DM us with the answers. Rosbifsrugby@gmail.com if you want to email us with the full list. Get in touch. Part 3 of the Rosbifs Rugby Christmas quiz is a miscellaneous round. It's a load of random questions bundled together. So we do a section on our podcast called Petit-Fours Digestifs. It's at the end of the podcast every week, much like how the French would finish a meal with some little sweet desserts and Petit-Fours, washed down with a digestif. This is where, so it's kind of to finish everything up, this is where we dive into all the weird and wonderful things that we have seen on social media in French rugby that week. And you'd be amazed. There are so many. Hopefully this quiz shows you how hilariously bizarre French rugby can be. We've also thrown a couple of questions in there about Les Bleus because they were great this autumn. So, question number 1 is about Les Bleus. Which player who made the key final tackle to hold up an All Black to seal France's win in the Autumn Nation Series reportedly had un gastro, and having played 70 minutes had to run off the pitch at the end of the game to go to the loo? Question number 1 of part 3 of the Rosbifs Rugby Christmas quiz is, which player who made the key final tackle to hold up an All Black to seal France's win in the Autumn Nation Series reportedly had un gastro, and having played 70 minutes had to run off the pitch at the end of the game to go to the toilet? Sorry, I know it's Christmas. Keep it clean. Much more positive. Question number 2. Who was man of the match when France beat New Zealand in November in the Autumn Nation Series? Question number 2. Who was man of the match when France beat New Zealand in November in the Autumn Nation Series? Question number 3 links together our love of Les Bleus, the national team, and the international rugby, and the lower reaches of French rugby. So, which National 1 club hosted 2 games on the same day in the Autumn Internationals? And which games were they for a bonus? I'll let you claw one back. Question number 3. Which National 1, third tier of French rugby, which club within that league hosted 2 international games on the same day in the Autumn Nation Series or the Autumn Internationals? And which games were they? Give us the club, have a stab at what games they were. Okay, question number 4 and 5, they're more about our Petit-Fours, so they're definitely ones for fans of the podcast. And if you think they're funny or you're intrigued, listen to the podcast. Question number 4. A story about Loic Garby featured on our podcast after his celebration on scoring a try in the 77th minute for Conflans RC 15 against Union Athlétique Issy-Jacquoise, down in the Dordogne, near Agen, that sort of area. His try celebration was intended to disassociate himself from something else that was happening that day, the 17th of November. What was he distancing himself from? So one for the fans of the podcast. A story about Loic Garby featured on our podcast after he scored a try in the 77th minute for Conflans RC 15 against Union Athlétique Issy-Jacquoise. His try celebration was intended to disassociate himself with something else happening on the 17th of November. Something else happening that day of that game. What was he distancing himself from? And question number 5. If question number 4 wasn't our favourite Petit-Fours Digestifs of the season, then this is also one of them. Question number 5. Which National 1 club has been celebrating its Player of the Month each month by awarding them a Côte de Boeuf from a local butcher? So in one of the National 1 clubs, Player of the Month gets a Côte de Boeuf from a local butcher. Which National 1 club is it? So there we have it. The end of the Rosbifs Rugby Christmas quiz. How did you get on? Get in touch, DM us or email us, rosbifsrugby@gmail.com with your answers. Can you beat Richard's 10 out of 15? If you enjoyed the quiz, please listen to the Rosbifs Rugby podcast every week. We are 2 English guys, me, Rob, and Richard, the better half of Rosbifs. We are 2 English guys diving into everything about French rugby. Top 14, Pro Day 2, National, the national team, Champions Cup, Challenge Cup, all the weird and wonderful things in French rugby, bars, cities, towns, holidays, everything about France and French rugby that makes a trip to France so good. If that's what you're into, give us a follow. It's two English guys doing everything about French rugby. Give it a listen.